The emergency room doors slammed open with a force that rattled the glass, shattering the tense hum of the hospital's fluorescent-lit chaos. A gurney burst through, wheels screeching against the linoleum, paramedics shouting VY towels over the din of crying children and groaning patients. Male, 62, cardiac arrest, resuscitated en route. One of them barked, their voices slicing through the air like a blade. Nurses swarmed, a flurry of scrubs and urgency. As the Mangre-faced, fragile beneath the oxygen mask, was whisked down the hall toward Trauma Room 2. The waiting room, already a pressure cooker of pain and impatience, seemed to hold its breath, every eye drawn to the fleeting glimpse of life teetering on the edge. Amid the crowd, a woman stood out, not for her injury, but for the storm she carried. Vanessa Harper, draped in a tailored blazer and heels that clicked with every restless step, clutched her wrist, a makeshift ice pack pressed against a bruise blooming beneath her sleeve. Her lips were a tight line, her eyes darting to the clock above the triage desk. 15 minutes. 15 minutes since she'd stormed into this overcrowded ER, her patience fraying with every tick of the second hand. She'd slipped on her marble staircase at homie an accident that felt like a personal betrayal, given the due lot 10,000 she'd spent on that custom spiral design. The pain was sharp, radiating up her arm, but what stung more was the indignity of waiting among the coughing, the bleeding, the quietly suffering masses. She was Vanessa Harper, event planner, socialite, a woman who made things happen. And yet here she was, reduced to another number in a sea of misery. The waiting area was a battlefield of exhaustion. A teenage girl cradled a feverish toddler, whispering soft assurances. An older man with a cane stared blankly at the floor, his hands trembling. The air was thick with the antiseptic tang of hospital cleaner and the faint, sour edge of fear. Overhead, the lights buzzed, casting a harsh glow that made everyone look half dead already. Vanessa shifted in her seat, wincing as her wrist throbbed. She tried to catch the nurse's attention earlier, but the woman at the desk name tag reading Clara had barely glanced up, her fingers flying across a keyboard as if Vanessa's pain were just another line item to ignore. Unacceptable, Vanessa muttered under her breath, loud enough for the woman next to her to shoot a weary side eye. She stood abruptly, her heels snapping against the floor as she marched to the triage desk. Clara was still typing, her face etched with the kind of fatigue that comes from too many hours and too little sleep. Vanessa cleared her throat once, twice. No response. Her temper flared, a hot coil tightening in her chest. "Excuse me," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I've been waiting forever, and no one's even asked if I'm okay. Do you know how much pain I'm in?" Clara raised her eyes, slow and deliberate, like someone surfacing from deep water. "Ma'am, we're triaging based on severity. We've got critical cases coming in, heart attacks, trauma. I promise we'll get to you as soon as we can." Her tone was calm, professional, but there was a steel edge to it, a warning not to push. Vanessa scoffed, tossing her hair. "Critical? My wrist could be broken. I pay taxes for this place, and I expect Sarah VYC, not excuses." She turned on her heel, muttering loudly as she limped back to her seat. "Should have gone to the private clinic on Oak Street. This is a disgrace." Her words drew a few glances, some annoyed, others indifferent, but most people were too wrapped up in their own worries to care. Vanessa didn't notice. She was too busy stewing, her mind replaying every slight, every second she'd been forced to endure this indignity. She didn't see the young nurse rushing past, her scrubs splattered with blood, or the way the waiting room seemed to pulse with a shared, unspoken dread. That nurse was Sophia Alvarez, a 29-year-old who'd been on shift for 6 grueling hours. She moved through the ER like a ghost, her steps quick but heavy, her mind a tightrope stretched between duty and despair. 2 hours ago, she'd gotten the call that her uncle, Miguel, had collapsed at his auto shop, his heart GI VYing out without warning. He'd been rushed to this very ER, her ER, and now he was in Trauma Room 2, fighting for his life. Sophia had wanted to run to him, to hold his calloused hand and whisper that he'd be okay. But the ER didn't stop for personal grief. There were patients to stabilize, charts to update, a gunshot VY Tim who'd coded twice in the last hour. Her uncle's condition was a weight she carried silently, each step a battle to keep her focus. She'd just finished assisting with a car accident VY time a teenager with a shattered femur when her radio crackled. Sophia, room 5, elderly female, respiratory distress. She nodded to no one, her body MOVYing on autopilot as she grabbed a fresh pair of gloves. Her uncle's face flashed in her mind his crooked smile, the way he'd taught her to change a tire when she was 16, but she pushed it down, locking it away. There'd be time for that later. There had to be. Back in the waiting room, Vanessa's patience snapped like a brittle twig. She spotted Sophia hurrying toward a side hallway, her dark braid swinging with purpose. To Vanessa, she looked like someone who could finally do something, someone who could fix this intolerable weight. She sprang up, ignoring the jolt of pain in her wrist, and followed, her heels clacking like gunfire. "Nurse," she called, her voice slicing through the hallway's hum. Sophia didn't stop she hadn't heard, her mind already in room 5, but Vanessa wasn't VYing it. She caught up, grabbed Sophia's shoulder, and when the nurse turned, startled, Vanessa's hand lashed out. The slap echoed like a thunderclap, freezing the hallway in its tracks. A janitor paused mid-sweep. A doctor glanced up from a chart, eyes wide. Sophia's head snapped to the side, her cheeks stinging, but it was the shock that hit harder sheer disbelief that someone would do this here now. Vanessa, chesty VYing, jabbed a finger in Sophia's face. "That's for ignoring me. I'm in agony, and you're all just standing around like I don't exist." For a moment, the world held its breath. Sophia's hand twitched, instinct urging her to touch her cheek, but she didn't. She straightened, her eyes locking onto Vanessa's with an intensity that made the other woman flinch. When she spoke, her voice was low, steady, each word a stone dropped into a silent pond. "I was on my way to help a woman who can't breathe. My uncle is in trauma room 2, fighting to stay alive. He collapsed this afternoon, and I haven't even had a second to see him because people like you need me. That's why I didn't stop." Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed, her righteous anger crumbling under the weight of Sophia's words. The hallway seemed to close in, every pair of eyes boring into her patients, staff, strangers who'd witnessed her unraveling. A man in a wheelchair shook his head, his lips tight with disgust. A mother pulled her child closer, whispering something sharp. Vanessa stammered. Two didn't know, but the words sounded hollow, even to her. Sophia didn't wait for more. She turned, her steps deliberate, and disappeared into room 5. Leah VY-ing Vanessa, stranded in a sea of judgment. The air felt VY-er now, charged with the kind of silence that follows a storm. Vanessa stumbled back to her seat, her face burning, her wrist forgotten. She sank into the chair, her hands trembling, and for the first time, she noticed the world around her, the quiet suffering, the resilience, the people who didn't scream for attention but bore their pain with grace. Inside room 5, Sophia worked with mechanical precision, adjusting oxygen levels for the elderly woman whose breaths came in shallow gasps. The patient's daughter stood nearby, her eyes red but grateful, murmuring thanks Sophia barely heard. Her cheeks still throbbed, a dull reminder of the hallway, but she pushed it aside. There was no room for anger here, not when lives hung in the balance. When the woman's breathing stabilized, Sophia slipped out, her heart pulling her toward trauma room 2. The room was dim, the only sounds the steady beep of monitors and the faint hiss of oxygen. Miguel lay still, his face slack but peaceful, and four dripping into his arm. Sophia checked his chart VY towel stable, for now and sank into the chair beside him. She took his hand, rough and warm, and let herself feel the weight of it all. The fear, the exhaustion, the fragile hope that he'd wake up and tease her about working too hard. "Tio," she whispered, "you've got to stick around. Who's going to fix my car when it breaks down again?" A faint smile tugged at her lips, but it didn't reach her eyes. Back in the waiting room, Vanessa sat frozen, replaying the slap in her mind. It wasn't just the act, it was the truth Sophia had laid bare. Vanessa had always believed her problems were the loudest, the most urgent, but now she saw how small they were against the backdrop of real crises. She glanced at the other patient, a young man with a bandaged head, a woman rocking a sleeping baby, and felt a pang of something unfamiliar: shame. Not the fleeting kind that fades with a good excuse, but the kind that settles in your bones and demands you look at yourself. She stood, hesitant, and approached the triage desk. Clara looked up, her expression unreadable. Vanessa's voice was soft, almost broken. "Can you tell the nurse Sophia I'm sorry? I didn't know about her uncle. I didn't know anything." Clara studied her, then nodded, jotting something down. "I'll pass it along." Vanessa returned to her seat, her apology hanging in the air like smoke, fragile but real. Hours passed. The ER churned on, a relentless machine of healing and heartbreak. Sophia moved between rooms, her focus unshaken, though her uncle's condition lingered in every quiet moment. Vanessa waited, her wrists still sore, but no longer her priority. She watched as others were called, their names a reminder that the world didn't pause for her regret. In trauma room 2, Sophia sat again, her uncle's hand in hers. The cardiologist had come and gone, optimistic about a stent procedure in the morning. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was hope, and Sophia clung to it. She pulled a worn photo from her pocket, her, Miguel, and her cousin at a family barbecue, all laughter and sunburned noses. She set it on the bedside table, a talisman against the uncertainty. As dawn broke, soft light filtered through the hospital's high windows, painting the ER in shades of gold and gray. Vanessa was finally called for her wrist to sprain, nothing more. The doctor wrapped it quickly, his voice kind but distracted. She nodded, thanked him, and left without complaint, her steps quieter now, her perspective irrevocably shifted. Sophia, still at Miguel's side, felt a faint squeeze of his fingers. Her breath caught, her eyes snapping to his face. His eyelids fluttered, and for a moment, their gazes met, weak but alive. "Sophia," he rasped, and she laughed, tears spilling over despite herself. "Don't scare me like that again, Tio." Outside, Vanessa stood in the parking lot, the morning air cool against her skin. She looked back at the hospital, its doors still swinging with the endless tide of need. She'd come here, demanding the world bend to her, but she was Leah Vying with something else, the weight of her actions and the chance to carry them differently. Somewhere inside, Sophia was still holding her uncle's hand, both of them fighting forward, one quiet moment at a time. And in the space between their stories, the ER kept beating a heart that never stopped, no matter who walked through its doors. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.